ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Namaste. You must have come across a post which says IYA celebrates IDY 2022. Yes, it is happening, and here we are. I would like to thank Indian Yoga Association for giving us an opportunity to celebrate this International Day of Yoga. Kaivalyadhama presents a workshop on yoga and mental wellness. We will be covering mental health, stress and well-being, anxiety issues, depression, not just in terms of theory, but we will also offer the practices by which these can be tackled. Before beginning with the workshop, let us hear what Shri.Subodh Tiwari ji, Secretary of Kaivalyadhama and General Secretary of IYA, has to say about this celebration.
Namaskar. I get you greetings from Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala, and we are very happy to participate in these ongoing celebrations for the International Day of Yoga 2022 being hosted by the Indian Yoga Association. Kaivalyadhama is going to complete its centennial year in 2023 and 24. For any institution to complete 100 years is a landmark. The reason is because the institution stands to promote the knowledge and expertise. Kaivalyadhama, founded in 1924 by Swami Kaivalyadhama ji, has been the pioneering institution in scientific and philosophical research in yoga. It has many firsts to its credit. 1924 was the first time when Rugna Seva Mandir, a yoga therapy section, was started by Swami Kaivalyadhama ji. 1951 was the first ever college in the world, the Govardhan Das Saxeria College, which was started in Lonavala at Kaivalyadhama. 1961 was the first ever full-fledged yogic hospital, which was started in Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala. Many things are credited to Kaivalyadhama through Swami Kaivalyadhama ji in the field of yoga. And I say all of this because the fundamental aim and vision of the founder was that yoga should be promoted in its purity in form. It should be scientifically investigated, philosophically understood, and applied in the lives of people. The workshop, Yoga and Mental Wellness, reflects the true essence of yoga. When Patanjali Maharishi speaks of yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, our main emphasis has to be on the holistic wellness. And one of the most important dimensions of holistic wellness is mental wellness. Though asanas have become the popular face of yoga, the essence of yoga lies in its ability to have a synthesis between your physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. And therefore, the approach of yoga towards your mind is very important, because it is the mind, it's the chitta, which is a reflection and manifestation in our physical self. I am not trying to be very philosophical here, but we have to utilize the tools given in Yoga Darshana, which has been proved with so much of evidence-based research to generate a larger scope of mental wellness in the society. And I should mention here, though it may become controversial, that the Western psychology has mostly used assumption after a certain point of understanding of consciousness, but the Eastern psychology has used the experiential paradigm to understand the human being. So I leave you towards experiential paradigm through this workshop being conducted by Kaivalyadhama. Thank you so much.
Shri.Subodh Tiwari ji has explained to us the purpose of this workshop and laid emphasis on the holistic wellness. In these times of uncertainties, the experts all over the world have reported a rise in the awareness of mental health. They recommend adopting preventive measures and non-medicated treatments before one attempts to seek help from medications. Yoga is one such timeless technique that is not only a great stress reliever but also helps to overcome the symptoms of anxiety, depression, etc. So let go of all the blockages from the mind with yoga. We have with us today Dr. Praseeda Menon, Research Officer, Psychology and Assistant Professor at Kaivalyadhama Yoga and Research Institute. Let's hear and understand the relation between yoga and mental wellness.
Namaste to one and all, and a very happy International Day of Yoga celebrations to all of you. So today we will be dealing with the topic of yoga for mental wellness. And my name is Dr. Praseeda Menon and I work at the Kaivalyadhama Yoga Institute and Research Center. And I will be telling you a little bit about how you can use yogic knowledge, practices, and also the knowledge available in psychology to your benefit so that you can have more mental wellness for yourself. So let's look at the objectives of today's lecture. So we will be dealing with all these points. We will be viewing some facts about mental health in India. We will then try to understand the role of stress in mental health. We will try to look out for signs of anxiety and depression, and these are all related to stress. We will also try to access a few free self-help resources. And then finally, we will learn how yogic practices contribute to overall mental wellness, and we will also focus on a specific yogic breathing practice and get to know more about it so that we can try to prevent stress, anxiety and depression in our daily lives. So now let us look at a few facts which you probably may know, but it's quite possible that you may not know too. So did you know that India received the undesirable title of the world's most depressing country in 2017 by the WHO? And the number of people suffering from a severe mental illness were 1 in 7, and that's too much. Also, if you look at the trend in the happiness index of Indians, you will see that there's a downward trend starting from 2011, wherein the happiness index was 89%. It dropped to 77% in 2019, and by August 2020, it had dropped way too low to 66%. So can you see, from 89% it dropped to 66%, and in just a matter of 10 years. And we have seen that COVID has left its negative impact all over the world. India was definitely a part of it, and the percentage of Indians who suffered from mental illnesses grew over 12.5% in 2021, that is last year, due to this pandemic. Another fact that I would like to present to you is about the Manas Mitra mobile app. Did you know about this app? Did you know that the Indian government is currently field testing this app so that it could be used nationwide, and it could be our digital platform for mental wellness, and the government could deliver telecounseling and mental health services for all ages through this app? And this is because the Indian government realizes the growing need for mental health care, and that too in a digital mode. And do you know that the first and foremost reason for India to lose its mental health is actually the lack of awareness and sensitivity about the issue of mental health? You know, I have heard my students tell me that our parents do not have a concept of mental health. They think that if you are not social enough, if you are getting isolated, if you are suffering from certain symptoms which will show a lot of nervousness in you, that's too common. You don't need to visit a doctor. But if we have fever, don't we not visit a doctor? So then why this sort of stigma about mental health? So the first decisive step in ensuring mental health would be to educate and sensitize ourselves about common mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, and of course stress, the signs and symptoms that we need to watch out for, and also explore preventive or therapeutic options. And one, definitely the most promising one, is yoga. Before we look at the role of yoga, let's look at these three things. First is stress, then we look at anxiety, and then we look at depression. But first, let's look at the mother of all the diseases, modern day diseases, that is stress. Chronic stress is actually the mother of all modern day diseases, and it includes all the psychological problems. And what all can chronic stress lead to? Anxiety disorders, depression, hypertension, insomnia, and the list goes on. And other modern day disorders are diabetes, cancer, heart diseases, respiratory diseases, and again the list goes on. So what is the stress who is actually the culprit for all these modern day diseases? Stress, you will be surprised to know, can actually be positive as well. In terms of the body-mind response, stress happens when certain hormones get secreted in your body. You may have heard about cortisol, that is commonly recognized as a stress hormone. And at the level of the mind, what you have is disturbed emotion. You do not feel too well. You feel something has gone wrong in your life. That's the overall feeling of stress. But we have to remember that stress is also a subjective response. And why do I call it a subjective response? Because it is very much related to individual perception. What is stressful for one person may not be stressful for the other person. In fact, it may be quite a thrill for the other person. Let me give you an example here. Say, for example, we are looking at the giant wheel. Some people get so stressed just looking at the giant wheel that they want to run away and escape and not let their family members or friends force them into sitting in the seats of the giant wheel. It's very anxious for them to look at the giant wheel, leave alone the thought of sitting inside a giant wheel. But you will have noticed some people, some youngsters who are so thrilled just by looking at the giant wheel, and they are even more thrilled when they go and sit inside it and go through that whole roller coaster sort of a circular ride. So the stimulus of the giant wheel is the same, but in different people it creates different responses, and that's exactly how stress works. It depends on so many factors. It depends on your personality factors. It depends on the intensity of the situation, so many other factors. And that is why there is a lot of individual perception when we perceive stress. So in order to understand stress a bit better, let's try to have like an equation which can also be considered like a practical definition of stress. Here stress, I have put it as that which is equal to what? When the perceived demand is greater than perceived coping capacity. Why do I say that? Let me explain this to you a little bit. Imagine that you have a stressful situation, say for example a deadline to meet in your job, and the deadline, the assignment that you have to complete is such that the demand that you perceive out of that deadline is such that you feel you have the capacity to meet that deadline. Then will you be stressed? Obviously not, right? Why? Because the perceived demand out of that particular situation or deadline is equal to your perceived coping capacity. They are equal. But what happens when this perceived demand will be greater than the perceived coping capacity? Meaning that you feel that you have very little time to meet that deadline, or you feel that you don't have the resources to meet that deadline. Resources in times of human resources, infrastructural resources, it may be whatever. Then what will happen? So you feel that you have to meet that deadline, and your coping capacity, the resources in terms of time and other resources are not matching the demand. Then what will happen? Your demand will be higher than your coping capacity. And when you perceive that, again there is individual perception here. So when you perceive that the demand is higher than your capacity to meet that demand, then you feel stressful. And now we will go on to the next slide to also see statistically how stress is perceived. In the scientific literature, stress is also explained in terms of a bell curve. The curve that you see in front of you, it is in the shape of a bell. And now I will explain this bell curve to you. So let us take the same example of meeting the deadline in your office. So the deadline is such that you think it is very easy to meet that deadline. You do not have to do too much. You have done this n number of times, and it will not take you much time and resources to meet that deadline or complete that assignment. At that time you are in that green zone wherein you are pretty much laid back, because you know that you can meet it. You can meet it very well even before the time that you have to complete it. But if the assignment that you have to complete, the deadline that you have to meet is such that it will take some amount of collecting certain information, gathering certain resources, trying to get your team together, put certain things in place. If you perceive it that way, then you go into that yellow zone where you have to spring into action. You cannot be laid back. You know that if you have to meet that deadline, you perceive that it is possible to meet that deadline if I complete these tasks which I can complete. So, that is that zone, that yellow zone of optimum stress. Here stress is positive, here stress is leading you to positive action. Now, what happens is, say for example, you have to do certain things which you could have done but you do not do. As the deadline approaches, you slowly start slipping into that orange zone of when you have too much stress and fatigue has started coming in, and slowly you're entering this phase of exhaustion. Now, if the deadline is very close and you have not done so many things that you could have done in the time available to you, and now it's just a last minute thing, then you enter into that red zone of lot of anxiety. You break down maybe sometimes, and this is a stage wherein you suffer from burnout because there is extreme stress. So, we saw the whole curve, the whole bell curve of how when there is very little stress, because you know that your coping capacity is absolutely fine to meet the deadline, you are pretty much laid back, to the yellow zone wherein you have to do some things, to the orange zone wherein you feel that now I am not going to be able to meet the deadline, and the red zone wherein you feel that now you won't be able to do anything. So, what I want to say here is that it is up to us to increase our coping capacity, either in terms of how we gear ourselves up to meet certain demands, or also health wise, how capable we are, how strong and balanced we are to meet deadlines or complete assignments in our life, or to get anything done in our life. So, now let us look at a related problem of anxiety. Now, when stress becomes chronic, that means when you do not deal with it, we saw the red zone that you entered into, anxiety. It's possible for you to sort of not enter into that zone by trying to take steps at the right time, but if you do enter into that zone, then what happens? So, you start becoming anxious. And what is anxiety? Anxiety, we should know this very carefully, that it is the feeling of fear or worry. It's very different from depression. We will look at depression in some time, but understand anxiety very well. Anxiety is persistent fear or worry, and it may be related to a near event in the future or a distant event in the future, but it is always related to an unwanted event in the future. Now, we need to know what are the symptoms of anxiety. Why? Because if we suffer from anxiety, we should know and locate anxiety within ourselves, and if we have our friends, our family, if somebody is suffering from anxiety, we need to locate anxiety in them as well. So, what are some common symptoms of anxiety besides the persistent fear and worry? Because persistent fear and worry will be in the person's mind. How do they manifest externally? They will manifest as symptoms of feeling nervous, restless, tense, and this will happen quite often, and you will see it on their face. And they will also talk to you about these worries, and you will find that it will be very difficult for them to control this worry. And probably you can see this within yourself also when you are in that anxious mode. The person will have increased heart rate, breathing will be quite rapid, there may be sweating, sometimes even trembling. The person may feel weak, tired, and also have trouble sleeping. So these are all the symptoms that you should watch out for. Now let's go to the next slide and look at what is this anxiety good for. Is it really so troublesome or is it okay? So all of us have some fears or worries in our life. Nobody can escape that. So this sort of normal fear or worry, which we call normal anxiety, is fine. It is in fact adaptive because it springs us into action. We just like the earlier example that I was telling you about, we try to do something to meet the deadline. So that normal anxiety will stay in our lives. It's good also because it is adaptive. When does anxiety become abnormal? It becomes abnormal when the way we react to the situation is totally out of proportion to the threat or danger situation or that deadline or whatever is that demand which the situation creates. That demand and your reaction is totally out of proportion. It is, your reaction is way too exaggerated. It's an overreaction to that threat, deadline, danger, demand situation. Okay? Now, if this sort of abnormal anxiety continues for a very long time, say for 6 months, then there is every likelihood that this abnormal anxiety now turns into an anxiety disorder. Disorder meaning something has gone wrong with your body and mind, and that stage of anxiety disorder will come when the anxiety, the abnormal anxiety lasts for 6 months and there is impairment in the functioning of the person. The day-to-day functioning of the person has got impaired. That is when we say that this person has entered the stage of anxiety disorder. And the symptoms are similar to what I told you earlier about anxiety. Now let us look at depression. Okay. Now depression and anxiety, sometimes people use it interchangeably. These are two different things. Some symptoms may overlap and I will let you know of those symptoms which are common, but we should know that anxiety is different from depression. What is depression? Depression, basically the feeling behind depression is that of sadness. Sadness to what extent? It's an uncontrollable feeling of sadness, something which you cannot resist, something which you cannot really control. It comes to you and you are not so much in control of it. And this uncontrollable sadness stays for a very long period, and then you don't have interest in life. You are sort of listless. That listlessness, you can say that you do not have a list in your life. Anything can happen at any time and you are okay with it. You do not have a list that I have to do this today, I have to do this tomorrow. You are completely lost. Why? Because there is so much of sadness and sorrow within you. And because of that, you feel helpless, hopeless, worthless. You feel your life has no meaning. You feel that, you feel that you are not in control of things. You are helpless basically and you have no hope. And also you tend to cry for no reason quite often because there is so much of sadness within you that you cannot help crying. So let us now also look at the manifest symptoms of depression, which you will find in people who are depressed. Now, these are the criteria that I have put in front of you, which have been presented by the American Psychiatric Organization, and it says that if you have to diagnose a particular person's state of mind as depression, then 5 of these symptoms have to persist for at least 2 weeks. And what are they? Sad, depressed, daily mood. So, this is happening on a day-to-day level. It is not like one day the person is depressed and the other day the person, or for the next week the person is not depressed. Just like fear, I was telling you earlier, for anxiety, sadness is also a part of our life. Some days we may not feel good, we may feel a little down, we may feel a little sad, upset, but that is a part of day-to-day life. When is it depression? When these symptoms like sad, depressed, daily mood, loss of interest or pleasure in usual activities, something which you enjoyed quite often earlier, you do not have any interest in it, you do not take any pleasure in that particular activity. Reduced energy, fatigue, and then weight gain or loss. Why? Because you may end up eating a lot or not eating at all. Both can happen. There can be insomnia or hypersomnia. What does that mean? You may not be able to sleep at all, or you may sleep too much, like the whole day and whole night you may sleep. Feeling worthless, having a sense of guilt, poor concentration, having very pessimistic, negative, bleak views about life, that nothing is going to happen, nothing good is going to happen in my life. Ideas of self-harm, maybe you take a knife and cut yourself, or a blade and cut yourself, cut your wrist. You also tend to have suicidal thoughts, and you may even attempt suicide. So, this is the extent to which depression can go to, and it is very important for us to watch out for these symptoms in ourselves, but more so in other people, because sometimes it may happen that we are so much into that state of anxiety or depression, we may not be able to watch out for these symptoms for ourselves. If it is a milder version, milder form of anxiety and depression, maybe we have that awareness to do certain things which may act as self-help for us. But we have to watch out for others, especially our friends and family members, our people who with whom we deal with every day, because a little bit of care from our end can actually save their life. Now, let us look at some of the symptoms which are common to both anxiety and depression. What are they? Changes to sleep patterns, irritability, loss of appetite, fatigue, and difficulty in concentrating on anything. So, these symptoms will exist if a person has anxiety as well as depression. Okay? These are symptoms which will overlap. Now, although these are two different conditions, anxiety and depression, we should also know that these can occur simultaneously. Both can be present in one person. And sometimes it so happens that one person has anxiety first, and that chronic anxiety can lead to depression later on. And we should be aware, that is very important, of if we take the steps of treating our anxiety, the other type of disorders associated with it will not come into our life. So, it is very important that we watch out for these symptoms and we also treat it at the right time. It is not always that a person who has anxiety disorders will enter into depression, but it may happen. So, now let us look at some resources that we can use so that we can do self-assessment, which is also free of cost because it is available on the internet. We can take these tests. So, the first test that I want to tell you about is the depression, anxiety, stress scales, which is called as the DASS test. And you will have a link in the video there. You can click that link. This will take you to the website of the DASS test, the Depression, Anxiety and Stress Scales test. Okay, it is a psychological test. It is a very well validated test. It is used for research purposes. It is also used in certain mobile apps. I have seen that the apps are using this particular test so that there can be a self assessment. So, on this page that you see, when you click the link and go to the page, to the home page, you will see a table which says interpretation of DASS scores, and it gives you columns wherein depression, anxiety and stress is mentioned and certain figures are mentioned. And as rows, you will see what is normal, what is mild, what is moderate, what is severe and what is extremely severe depression, anxiety or stress. So, these are the scores that you have to sort of match your own score with when you take the test. Okay. So, remember this table because you have to come back to this table after taking the test. Now, where do you go to take the test? You will go to run the demo. There is that link there and you click on run a demo of the survey. It will take you to a page which will give you a 42 item test. What is this test? It has 42 items, and once you take this test, you will be able to assess what are your scores on depression, stress and anxiety. We will keep ourselves on the same page and we will try to see what are the options that we have when we try to do the test. So, we have 4 options. One is never, one is sometimes, one is often and one is the last one is almost always. So, let me read out one particular statement for you so that you have an example in front of you. So, let us take the first statement. I found myself getting upset by quite trivial things. Now, you have to respond to this. Is it never, is it sometimes, is it often or is it almost always? You have to click on that radio button and choose whichever is the most suitable in your case. Okay? One thing you have to remember is these sort of tests, psychological tests are self-report tests, which means that if you are honest and if you answer with sincerity, only then will you get accurate results. If you play with the test and if you do not give correct answers, you just treat it as something which you will just click and you will try to get a result, you are not going to get an accurate result. So, if you want to use it as self-assessment, make sure that you are very honest because only you are doing this assessment, nobody else is coming and looking at your scores. So, just like the first item, you have to do 41 more items and you have to keep clicking on these options. Once you click all the options, then the button there which says click this button to continue, that will change its color and then you can click on it and then that will take you to a page wherein you will see all your scores related to depression, related to anxiety and related to stress. Now, once you see these scores, make sure that you write them down because you may not be able to come to this page again or else you will have to redo the test. So, just make a note of all these 3 scores and then you can click the button to continue. Once you do that, then it will take you to the original home page, and then the scores that you have written down, you can tally it with this table of interpretation of DAS scores and see where do you lie. Do you, in depression, do you lie in the normal category or mild category or moderate category or severe or extremely severe? Same with anxiety and stress. Where do you lie? Now, if you are in the normal or mild category, it should be fine. It may be just a matter of a few situations in your life. If you are in the mild category especially, normal is normal, you do not have to worry. But if you are in the mild category, maybe because of circumstances, some things may have changed in your life due to which you feel a little bit of stress or anxiety or even depression, does not matter. But if you are coming into the moderate or severe or extremely severe category, then you do need to take care. So, now let us go back once again to our slide, and let me now tell you about a few things related to DAS before we also look at the Hindi translation of DAS, okay? Because some of you may not be very comfortable with the English language. So, I will in a bit tell you about how to access the Hindi translation of DAS. But before that, what I want to tell you is when you take this English version of the DAS, which is a 42 item test, we have to remember that this is not a clinical or diagnostic assessment. This is only for self-assessment. What does this mean? This means that the scores that you get, and if they fall into the moderate or severe category, they are indicative of a problem, of a possible problem, but not a definitive problem. Okay? So, you have to redo the test, and I will come to that in a bit. But now, for the benefit of many of our viewers who would want to access the Hindi version of this test, a link is posted in the video there, and you can click that link for the Hindi translation of the DAS. And what you will see is that once you click that link, you will go to a page wherein you will see the translations. Now, there are two translations available. One is the Singh translation and one is the Sharma translation. So, go to the Singh translation. Why? Because that Singh translation will give you the longer 42 item test. There are shorter versions like the 21 item test and even shorter versions, but we do not want to take that test because we want a comprehensive self assessment for ourselves, right? We have time. It does not take, this test will not take you more than 10 to maximum 15 minutes, and we can have so much of time for ourselves. So, take the longer version. Once you click the Singh translation, you click the one which says only DAS, do not click the one which says DAS 21, okay? Because DAS 21 is the shorter version. Click the one which says DAS, and you will get like a PDF file or a Word file which will give you all the 42 items of the test. Now, this test is available in Hindi as a translation, but you will not get a computerized version of the Hindi test. So, what should you do if you want to make it easy for yourself to sort of self score with the help of the website? Then you keep this Word file in front of you. Go to the English version of the test that I showed you, and the first item in the Hindi test is the same as the first item in the English test. So, just read and understand the Hindi version of the first item and just mark your response in the English version. And you keep doing this for 42 items and you will get the score which is available in the English computerized version of the test. Okay? So, once you do this, you will get a score, note it down and then tally it with the table which talks about the interpretation of the DAS scores on the home page. Okay? How we should deal with DAS when our scores are, say, for stress, anxiety or depression, they are in the moderate category or anything above that. So, what I would suggest is, since this is not really a diagnostic test, I would ask you to use this test with a little bit of caution. And what is that caution? If you are getting higher scores on DAS, just wait for some time, say wait for 7 days, and then redo this test again. And again compare the scores and see where you lie. If you are still getting higher scores, that is moderate and above that, then I think there is a need for you to treat your condition with a little bit of concern. So, what I would suggest is you should seek counseling services if after doing this test, DAS test for 2 times, you are still getting higher scores. So, now you will say that, how can I seek counseling services, because professional psychological counseling is very expensive. I am totally with you on this, and I do agree that psychological counseling services can be pretty expensive and not that affordable, especially when you have to take repeated sessions. So, what I would say is, why not try the helplines that are available right now, and especially due to the COVID pandemic and so much of emphasis on mental health care, more helplines have got created. One is a standard one, and you can trust this. This is iCall. This was started very long ago, but now so many other helplines have sprung up, and I am going to post a link there which will lead you to more helplines. And this link that I am posting there is of the Live, Love, Laugh Foundation. And do you know who owns this foundation? Can you take a guess? Can you take a wild guess of who owns this foundation? It is a celebrity and a woman who is very popular. Did you guess it right? Maybe yes. This foundation of Live, Love, Laugh is owned by Deepika Padukone. And when you click that link, and when you scroll down, you will see that on this particular page, this website of the foundation owned by Deepika has listed several self-help resources for telecounseling. So, there are several of these helplines which are listed, their contact details are given, the times of operation are given, the languages are also stated in which the counseling can be made available. So, what you can do is, if say you call one particular helpline and you find that you are not able to get through because the line is too busy or engaged, you can call another helpline. There are several there, and you can choose which one you want to call depending on the times and probably the languages. Okay? So, I would definitely urge you that if you have a problem, this is the first line of help that you have available, which is free of cost, and please go through the assistance that is provided by these helplines and take its services and let yourself get benefited, because the people who are at the other end of these helplines are professional counselors. They are trained and they will be able to give you good advice as to the situation that you are facing in your life. Now, we want to see that after looking at all these problems, modern day problems of stress, anxiety, depression, creating awareness of the signs and symptoms related to these problems, and then also going one step ahead and doing a self-assessment, now we are in a position to understand where we are. Do we face a problem? Do we need help? And what is the next step? The next step is we should also know whether yoga can help us, and we should also know how does yoga help us, because yoga, as you would know, is not just a therapeutic science, it is also a preventive science, right? So, even before you face these problems in your life, it is possible for you to create a body and especially a mind which is very strong, which is very balanced. And as you would know, stress and these related problems of anxiety, depression, they have weaker effects on a relaxed, calm, clear and balanced mind. And why is it important to have a clear and balanced mind? Because if you have this, your decision making capacities are greater, your coping capacities are greater. And when you have very good decision making ability, when you have good coping abilities, then you do not have anxiety or depression in your life, right? And now, because we understand that we need to have a clear mind, a balanced mind, that is where yoga comes in. Because all the awareness based yoga practices, they will help you to create this clearer and more balanced mind. And you will say that how is this possible? Because probably you're a novice, or probably you have done yoga, but then you have done more of the jerky sort of yoga, wherein it is more of the exercises that you have done, and you have never felt the mental health benefit of yoga. So now I will give you the analogy of the mind and how we can use yoga to help our mental health. So before I get into the yoga part, let me tell you the analogy of the mind. So I have this bottle in front of me, okay? It's filled with water and it's filled with some sand and dust as well, okay? Now, right now when you see the bottle, you will see that it is pretty much clear water, settled water, because I kept it for a long time. I did not shake it. But what will happen if I shake this bottle? See how dusty the water has become. And you will find a lot of dirt moving in the water. So you can treat whatever moves in the water, the dirt, the sand, the pebbles, as your thoughts. And when you're too saturated and you have lots of thoughts within you, you will find that your mind is like this unsettled water space. Your mind space is like this water space, wherein it's a little muddy, not very clear. And I have the same analogy presented in front of you in the slide as well. So you have 3 pictures there of the bottle. The first bottle, you will see that still the sand is settling. It has not settled completely. The water is very muddy. At the top, you will see the layer of the water is very muddy. Slowly the sand and the mud starts settling, but it's still taking time. And finally, like I showed you, when I picked up this bottle, the water was very clear. Now it's still a little muddy. If I shake it again, it will again become very muddy, right? So now the third picture there of the bottle is of a bottle which has been kept for a very long time and all the mud has settled down, and you see clear water. The water is so clear that when you look through, you can also see the background behind the bottle. That's the analogy of a clear mind. So when your mind is settled, which means that when your thoughts are settled, there is an opportunity for you to think clearly in your mind. Now, when you're doing too much of activity in your life, what happens? Too many thoughts, too many things to deal with, and then you cannot take the time to just settle down. But when you sit silent for at least 5 minutes and maybe just focus on your breath, what happens? You give that time to yourself to just relax and let your thoughts settle. As much time as you would give yourself for your thoughts to settle, the more relaxed you will feel, the clearer in your mind you would feel. So, the clearer in your mind you feel, you can say that you are able to master your mind better. So, that is the analogy of a settled mind, which would eventually lead to a clearer mind and which will give you that clear thinking capacity to make good decisions and to face life without any stress or anxiety, and that is that composed and mastered mind that you would have. So, let us go further now, and we have seen this analogy of the mind, and now we want to make use of this analogy. We want to remember this analogy and see how yoga and yogic practices will help us in dealing with stress. So, one thing we should remember is that our breath is very important. If we notice it, it can be a mirror to our problems. So, when you are going through a stressful situation, notice your breath, because your breath is the first to get affected in stressful times. Why is it so? Because your breath actually lies as a bridge between your body and mind. Whatever happens to your body, it gets reflected in the breath. Whatever happens to your mind, it gets reflected in the breath. So, if you can pay attention to your breath, you will be able to have a good grasp of the state of your body and more so of your mind. Your breath actually serves as the mirror of your body-mind condition, and you will be able to see how are you doing, how is your mental health. So, being aware of your breath and proactively working with your breath would be a very important step in you trying to settle your mind, in you trying to have that clearer mind that you want. And when you have a clearer mind, what happens? There is very less stress. You can manage your stress well. If there is stress, it will not lead to anxiety or depression, and you can maintain your well-being. So, now since we are talking so much about breath and we are talking about how yoga can help us, let us look at a yogic practice, which is a yogic breathing practice called Bhramari Pranayam. Now, I am sure all of you must have heard about this particular type of pranayam, because it is a very popular pranayam at some point or the other in your life, right? It is actually popularly called the humming breath. Why? Because when you do this pranayam, you produce the sound of humming. And why is it called Bhramari? Because the sound that you produce is that of the Brahmar. What is a Brahmar? It is the bumblebee, the Indian bumblebee, and you will have seen this bumblebee many a times coming into your living space and into your rooms and just buzzing and going, right? So, when you produce the sound in this pranayam, it will be alike the bumblebee sound. Okay? Now, why is this pranayam so important, and why am I going to talk about this pranayam and only this pranayam? Why have I chosen to talk about this particular pranayam today? That is because this pranayam is very, very effective in countering not just stress, but also anxiety and depression, all three at one go. Normally what happens is when you are doing a yogic practice, it may be good for stress and anxiety, but maybe not for depression, because depression is sadness and anxiety is more the fear aspect. Now, these are two different types of feelings. So, in order to deal with the consequences of this type of situation, these type of conditions, you will make use of different practices if you are taking the other yogic practices. The asana for anxiety would be different, for depression it would be different. But this particular pranayam, if you do, it is good for all three together. So, it is like, you know, in one arrow you have hit three birds. Okay? So, that is why I have chosen to speak to you about the Bhramari pranayam today. What are the other benefits that we can talk about which Bhramari pranayam would give you? It is a natural tranquilizer. You know, people when they are facing anxiety issues or depression, especially you know, major depression, they will go to a psychiatrist and ask them to give medicines. So, the psychiatrist will prescribe tranquilizers, which are allopathic medicines, which are chemicals. But this particular practice of the Bhramari pranayam, it actually acts like a natural tranquilizer. If your depression is not very high, if your anxiety is not very high, at the milder, even at the moderate level, you can probably take care of your stress, anxiety and depression with the help of this natural tranquilizer of Bhramari pranayam. One more benefit is that, you know, it is a very good practice for improving your overall immunity as well. It soothes your brain, it calms your mind, it removes the physical and mental fatigue that you face in your day-to-day life. It provides you with overall vigor. It is very good in inducing sleep. You do Bhramari pranayam for half an hour and you will see how like a baby you sleep that day. Do it and then you will notice. If you don't do it, you will never experience it. It is also very good for improving your concentration and memory. And when all these things are happening, why will it not restore your overall sense of well-being and mental health? So, when we have a practice in yoga which is so good that it can, you know, give you so many benefits, then why should we not do it or practice it, right? So, now I have some tips, if I may put it that way, for you for the Bhramari pranayam practice. What I am going to talk to you right now is the simple Bhramari pranayam practice. Now, there are two ways to do Bhramari. One is you do not make use of your hands, you just keep it rested and do the humming breath. Another way, which is probably a more popular way to do Bhramari, is to take a particular mudra of the hand, which is called the Shanmukhi mudra, and then you close your ears, you close your eyes, you also try to close your nostrils, and basically you are closing your five senses. It is called the Shanmukhi mudra and you are placing it like this and you are doing the Bhramari pranayam. But we are not going to do it, that type of pranayam. Why? Because, you know, when you are keeping your hand for a long time, your hand may pain a little bit, you may not be able to practice for a long time, especially if you are a novice. So, we want to do a simpler form of Bhramari pranayam. Okay? The effect will be reasonably good as probably when you practice with Shanmukhi mudra, if you practice the simple Bhramari pranayam for a longer time. People who practice with the Shanmukhi mudra can continue their practice, but make sure that you can practice for a longer time, because our intention here in practicing the simple Bhramari pranayam is to practice it for a longer time. okay, and not be disturbed because our hands are aching. So, now I am going to try and demonstrate each and every step that I am going to talk to you about. So, the first step is to sit comfortably, but make sure that your back is comfortably erect, your chest and your abdomen are well aligned, okay, so that you have good breathing space, okay, here in your upper part of the body. Your hands can be well rested on your lap. Right now I am sitting on a chair. You can take a cross-legged position and sit on the floor as well. Probably that is more beneficial because you are well grounded. Now, the first thing that you will do is you will try to inhale in such a way that your abdomen goes out. That means this is called abdominal breathing. Okay? So, when you inhale, your abdomen is going out, you are filling air in your abdomen, and when you do this very, very slowly. The inhalation will be very slow. Try to inhale equal amount of air every second. So, once you have inhaled and bloated your belly, that means filled air in your abdomen, if it is possible for you, what you can do is you can breathe a little more, that is inhale a little more by raising your chest muscles a little more, not too much. The main breathing is through your abdominal muscles. So, you have already inhaled and bloated your abdomen, but now if it is possible for you to do like a, what we call full yogic breathing, if it is possible for you, you can also breathe a little bit more with the help of your chest. So, I will demonstrate this part also, but like I said, it is not necessary for you to breathe with your chest. You can just keep it as abdominal breathing, that is also fine. So, I will just demonstrate how it is when you are able to inhale a little more through your chest. Okay. So, in this step I only wanted to demonstrate inhalation, what is correct, what is the correct way to inhale. Okay. So, like I said, abdominal breathing, your abdomen goes out, and if possible also chest breathing, and so abdominal plus chest breathing is full yogic breathing. If it is not possible for you, do not overexert yourself, do only as per your capacity, because if you overexert yourself, you may have trouble exhaling. Okay? And now after this step of inhalation, I will also demonstrate the exhalation process for you. How do we exhale? So, we completed the first step. Now, the second step of exhalation for Bhramari pranayam. These are all, you know, we are preparing for Bhramari. I will demonstrate the full Bhramari pranayam to you later on, but right now we are just learning the small steps to the entire Bhramari pranayam. So, inhalation we learned. Now, how do you exhale? What is the correct way to exhale? So, I will have to demonstrate the inhalation to you once again, so that you know, you can understand how is the exhalation. But before that, I think I should tell you what is the procedure that we are going to follow. Now, when you exhale, the order of release of the air is such that you release your chest first and then your abdomen, if you have done full yogic breathing. If you have not done full yogic breathing, and if you have done only abdominal breathing, there is no chest breathing, then you have to release only your abdomen. But if you have done chest breathing, then you have to release your chest first, and I will show you what this means. But the order is reverse of inhalation. In inhalation, you first filled air in your abdomen and then in your chest. In exhalation, you will release your chest first, the air from the chest first and then from your abdomen. So, whatever is the order that you take in inhalation, the order is reverse in exhalation. So, just remember that. So, I will demonstrate this step and then we will go to the sound part. Okay? So, I am going to inhale first and then you can see the exhalation. Now, the next step of how do we produce the sound, what is the nature of the sound that we produce. In Bhramari Pranayam, we do not have a sound from the throat. We have a sound from the nose. It is the nasal sound and not the throat sound. So, what is the sound that will be produced? It is the N sound, the king sound and not the M sound, okay? Not the mouse, the mole sort of a sound, not the ma which is there in the Omkara, but the N sound, okay? And this also I will demonstrate to you. But before that, I also want you to know what is a better position of the tongue that you should have to be able to facilitate the production of that N sound. So, the tip of your tongue, try to put it to the upper palate where the tip should rest on the area where your teeth start. Okay? So, when you, and this will come very naturally, you do not have to do this. When you close your mouth, it will come naturally. Just make sure that the tip of your tongue rests on the upper palate where your teeth start, upper teeth start. Okay? So, when you keep it there, it will be easy for you to produce this N sound. Now, about the sound, before I demonstrate the sound, about the sound, make sure that the sound is not tapering like this, like the volume and the pitch is higher and then the pitch goes lower and the volume goes lower. No tapering sound. It is a flat, low pitched, even sound. That is something that you should note. It is the sound of the humming breath is a low pitched, flat humming sound and there is no tapering. If you find that your sound has started tapering, just cut the sound, exhale the rest of the breath. Okay? No tapering sound. Tapering happens only in the Omkara, not in Bhramari, because it is an N sound. Now, I will demonstrate the sound for you and also I will have to do the inhalation and the exhalation process as well. So, I will demonstrate 3 repetitions of the Bhramari Pranayam for you. I think maybe it will be good for me to first show you the quality of the sound as well before I demonstrate the whole pranayam. So, this is the N sound, this is the M sound, okay? And what we want is the king, the N sound. So, now I will be demonstrating the full Bhramari Pranayam for you with the controlled inhalation, controlled exhalation and of course, the N sound. Okay? So, I will close my eyes and demonstrate 3 repetitions of Bhramari Pranayam for you, just so that you get an idea of simple Bhramari Pranayam. You can adopt the chin mudra if you wish to, so that you get added benefit of the mudra in the pranayam. So, like I had told you, sit for a couple of minutes at least, very still, after you do your practice for 15 to 20 minutes, so that you feel the effect of the practice. This will allow you to experience the moment when you have completed the practice and to feel its effect within you and to remember the moment also of how you feel. So, if you keep doing this Bhramari Pranayam in this way, you can continue this for a longer time. You do not have to worry about your hands paining with the Shanmukhi Mudra. So, you can sustain this Bhramari practice for a longer time. So, I hope you were able to understand Bhramari Pranayam with this demonstration, with all the steps that I explained to you in a proper way. One word of caution I want to have over here for you, for those people who want to practice Bhramari Pranayam and who have any instances of heart diseases or even ear infections. I would suggest that you avoid practicing Bhramari Pranayam. If you have ear infections, at least for a temporary period, you can just avoid. If you have heart diseases, I would suggest that you take the advice of your doctor and only then start your practice. Or if you still are very keen on practicing, then please go to an experienced yoga therapist who will understand your problem and who will help you to practice Bhramari Pranayam. It is not necessary that you have to practice only Bhramari Pranayam. There are, say, other types of pranayam like Anulom Vilom Pranayam also, which you can practice. So, people who are having heart diseases, ear infections, I am saying that please practice with caution. Do not let this be another problem for you. I want to give you certain instructions related to your Bhramari practice. Now you have seen the demonstration. I hope you are able to practice on your own. What I want to tell you right now is that if you can practice Bhramari, this type of Bhramari, simple Bhramari pranayam, say for 15 to 20 minutes every day with closed eyes continuously without a break, this will be your daily maintenance dose to sort of prevent stress, anxiety and depression. If you look at stress, anxiety and depression, the acronym that gets formed, the short form is SAD. So, you can avoid SAD, you can prevent sad things of stress, anxiety and depression coming into your life, and you can have a greater positive effect. Why? Because Patanjali says that if you practice one particular technique or practice for a long time, you get greater benefit. So, what I would like to advise you is that if you want to see the effect of Bhramari Pranayam to a greater extent in your life, practice it continuously for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And when you do this with closed eyes, and after that when you sit absolutely still for say at least 2 minutes, and I would strongly advise you to do that, and after finishing your practice, when you do this, when you try to feel the effect of the practice, you can remember the effect, you can remember the experience of how it feels to be in that state of calmness and more relaxation mentally and overall well-being. And it will also have a greater effect, not just doing the practice but also feeling the experience of the effect of the practice. Okay? So please sit still, absolutely still for 2 minutes at least after you finish your practice of 15 to 20 minutes continuously. And always remember that you should not practice in a way that you exceed your capacity. Do not overexert yourself. In yoga, there is one principle that we always follow, yatha shakti, and which means as per your capacity. So you should always practice as per your capacity and at your own pace. Now, a couple of more things which you can remember is, try to be in a quiet place when you practice Bhramari Pranayam, because this you are doing for your overall well-being, to feel more calm and composed and tranquil, right? So try to be in a quiet place without distractions. Try to keep your phone on silent mode. Just try to avoid all possible distractions. And if possible, if you get into a habit of daily practice, try to keep the time of your practice and the place of your practice the same. Try as much as possible. It's not that you have to do it, but if you can do it, that will be great. And as you would probably know, that all pranayam, and Bhramari Pranayam is definitely not an exception to it, that if you practice it on light stomach, you get the maximum benefit, or else you will feel full and you will not be able to practice well also. So have a lighter stomach when you practice Bhramari Pranayam. Okay? So I think we have looked at the whole journey of what stress is and what is anxiety, what is depression. We took a self-assessment. We now know what are its symptoms. We can identify it in ourselves. And we also saw how yoga helps, how a specific practice which I demonstrated to you today and talked to you about its benefits, how it helps. So the key takeaway, what I have for you today, is the analogy. Do not forget that analogy of how important it is to let yourself settle and be quiet. Even if you do not do anything, and if you are tensed, nervous, anxious, if you are a little depressed, even if you can just sit still and just focus on your breath and maybe take a little bit of deep breaths, your mind will settle. And that settled mind will probably lead you to a clear mind. Of course, if your circumstances are such that they are very overpowering, then probably this will not happen. You may have to do certain practices, and even if even after doing the practices it doesn't help, then you need to seek help from mental health professionals. But in our day-to-day lives, I think it is very much possible for us to give ourselves this opportunity of being settled in our mind, so that we have a clear mind, and which will also lead to a mastered mind. And try to remember this analogy. And before we conclude, I would like to summarize everything. So the summary that I present to you is: watch out for early signs and symptoms of chronic stress, anxiety and depression. You have already learned what they are. Make use of available self-help resources, that some of which I told you. You can probably go on the internet and Google search it, and also seek help or counseling when you need. Another point that I would like to emphasize here is that consciously befriend your breath and cultivate awareness of it in your daily life. It will serve you as your best friend if you can cultivate awareness of your breath. And last but not the least, practice yogic breathing daily for 15 to 20 minutes. If you want to live a life wherein you are preventing the negative consequences of stress and the related problems of anxiety, depression, and you want to maintain good health and ensure greater well-being. Don't forget that stress is the mother of all the other psychological as well as physiological problems. We looked at that. So, if you want to prevent that cascading effect of stress, which will seep into your body and mind, you have to sort of counter it, nip it in the bud itself with the help of yogic practices. And like I said, Bhramari Pranayam, it takes care of all these three together. It's a very potent practice, and if you can make it as a part of your life for 15 to 20 minutes, you will have a very happy life. So, thank you so much and namaste. And once again, a very happy International Yoga Day celebrations to all of you. Dhanyavad. And I will leave you with the saying of Lao Tzu, which talks about how you should be living in your present if you want peace. Namaste.
I'm sure you all are at peace. After listening to Dr. Praseeda Menon, all I feel is just go, sit and do the Bhramari practice. So I'm going to do that. But yes, I have something for you as well. So inspiring and getting motivated after listening to Dr. Praseeda Menon, here we have an experiential session. So whatever we have learned so far, the technique and the practices, now we will practice that. So I'm leaving you all with Dr. Santosh Pandey, Research Officer, Senior Yoga and Naturopathy Physician, Kaivalyadhama Yoga Institute.
So today we will start with the practice of Nadi Shuddhi, and it is also called Anulom Vilom Pranayam. Basically this practice is very much important for cleansing and balancing of all the 72,000 nadis, and at the same time you can say that it prepares you for all other practices of pranayamas. So first, sit in any comfortable position, preferably in Padmasana, Siddhasana. If you are not aware of these postures, you can sit in normal Sukhasana also. Hands in Gyan Mudra, Chin Mudra, whichever mudra you want to adopt, you can do that. Keep your back straight, back and neck in same straight line. Now adopt Vishnu Mudra. So you have to fold your index and middle fingers and touch the tips of these two fingers at the root of the thumb. You can use any right or left hand, whichever is comfortable to you. And you will be using the thumb and the ring finger for closing and releasing the nostrils. So we will start with the practice of Anulom Vilom. So keep your back straight, eyes closed. Here now we are not going for any kumbhak, we are just doing the normal breathing. So for kumbhak you will have to learn it under the proper supervision and guidance, but even this practice also has got a very good effect on relaxing the mind. So adopt Vishnu Mudra. Now take a deep breath, inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and try to see that your exhalation is double the time of your inhalation. Now close your right nostril, inhale from the left nostril deeply. Now exhale from the right nostril and see that your exhalation is double the time of your inhalation. And exhalation should be without any sound, very slow. Now once again inhale deeply from the right nostril. Now exhale from the left nostril. This is one round. You have to practice for minimum 10 rounds of this Nadi Shuddhi. So once again, start from the left nostril, inhale deeply from the left nostril. Exhale from the right. Inhale from the right nostril. And exhale from the left nostril. Once again inhale from the left nostril. Exhale from the right nostril. Inhale from the right nostril. And exhale from the left nostril. Inhale from the left nostril. Exhale from the right nostril. Inhale from the right nostril. And exhale from the left nostril. You can continue for few more rounds, and minimum 10 rounds you can practice of this particular pranayam. So after finishing 10 rounds, you can slowly release your hands and relax for a while. Now prepare yourself for the practice of Bhramari Pranayam. Sit in any comfortable position. Keep your back straight. Now slowly, with inhalation, inhale deeply. And with exhalation, create a humming sound, or mentally, verbally, you can chant makar also, closed mouth. Inhale deeply. Take a deep breath. 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 Keep your eyes closed and try to feel the vibrations throughout your body. Brahmari pranayam is very effective for insomnia. If you are under stress, anxiety, you can practice it for almost 18 to 36 rounds, and between each chanting try to give gap so that you can feel the vibrations and you can feel the relaxation. There is no need to continuously do it because that will shorten your breath also. It's very, very effective pranayam even for migraine, headache, if you have continuous stress in your life, you can do this practice. So let us get ready for the practice of Omkar meditation. Please sit in any comfortable position. Keep your back straight and gently close your eyes. Just observe your breathing for few cycles. Slow and rhythmic breath. Inhale deeply and exhale slowly. Start observing your exhalation, the point your exhalation starts and ends. Just observe your exhalation. Inhale fresh and vitalizing energy, and while exhaling, exhale disease and used up energy outside your body. Now bring your awareness towards your abdomen. Become aware of your abdominal area. Spread your awareness throughout your abdomen. And slowly start concentrating this awareness and bring your awareness towards your navel center. Just observe your navel center. With each inhalation and exhalation, try to observe the movements of your navel. As you inhale, your abdomen slowly bulges out, and with exhalation, it sinks in. Observe these abdominal movements. Spread your awareness throughout your abdomen, throughout your lower limbs. Try to become aware of any type of sensations in this part of your body. Become aware of any type of pulsations, vibrations, pains, aches, stiffness anywhere from your navel towards your legs. Now slowly move your awareness little up towards your chest from the navel center, and start observing your center of the chest. Observe your heart, your lungs, the blood vessels. Just observe. Now slowly move your awareness little up through your throat, come to your eyebrow center. So try to feel the vibrations inside your brain. Just observe your whole body from the top of the head to the tips of the toes, keeping your awareness with these 3 energy centers. Just observe each and every part of your body and try to become aware of any type of pulsations, vibrations, pains, aches, stiffness, any type of sensation. Just move your consciousness throughout your body slowly and just observe the sensations. Now we are going to chant Omkar. So in Nadanusandhan, we start with Akar, then Ukar, and then Makar, and in last Omkar. While chanting, we have to try to keep our awareness only on the chanting, and after chanting there will be a small gap, and in between that gap you have to try to feel the silence and try to feel the relaxation. So bring your awareness towards your navel center. As you chant Akar at your navel center, the vibrations of Akar immediately start flowing throughout your whole digestive system, your genitourinary system, and your lower limbs. So any type of hyper or hyposecretions in this area can be easily balanced with the practice of Akar chanting on a regular basis. So first I will chant, and after that we will practice it together. And remember, we will be giving little gap between 2 syllables. So first listen. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale once again deeply. Inhale deeply once again. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Try to feel the vibrations of akar flowing throughout your abdomen and the lower limbs. Just observe each and every part inside your navel, your digestive system, your genitourinary system, your back, your spine, your legs. Each and every part in this area is completely balanced and energized. Try to feel the vibrations. This syllable is very, very important to balance your navel center, which is also called a generator inside your body, because this is the area which helps in generating the energy. Now slowly bring your awareness towards your center of the chest. And just observe this area with your closed eyes. balance and activate this area, let us chant Ukar loudly. So repeat after me. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Chant Ukar. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply and chant. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Chant Ukar. Try to feel the vibrations of Ukar throughout your heart and lungs, energizing your cardiac plexus, relaxing your heart, reducing the stress from the heart. the long practice of Okar, you'll be able to hear the pulsations of your heart. After chanting, just observe for any type of sensations here. Now, slowly we will move up, come to your eyebrow center. Now we will chant Makar. Take a deep breath and with exhalation chant Makar. Repeat after me. Try to feel the silence after each syllable. Inhale deeply. Inhale. 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 Inhale deeply. Try to feel the vibrations of Makar flowing throughout your head and neck. These 3 syllables have sensitized your whole body. Observe your whole body from the top of the head to the tips of the toes. Let us combine A, U, Ma and chant Omkar, and with each Omkar mantra, try to observe your whole body starting from A, U, Ma, starting from your navel up to your eyebrow center, and try to feel the vibrations of Omkar throughout your body. Inhale deeply, and with exhalation, you to chant Omkar. Repeat after me. Inhale. Try to feel the vibrations of Omkar throughout your body. Once again, inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Inhale deeply. Try to feel the vibrations of Omkar flowing throughout your whole body. Mentally chant this syllable, chant this beej, Omkar, inside your brain, the front side, the whole brain, your eyes, your nose, lips, chin, cheeks, and ears. Your whole head is vibrating with Omkar. Now slowly chant Omkar inside your throat, inside your both the shoulders, your arms, elbows, forearm, wrist, palms and fingers. Keep repeating mentally and try to experience the presence of Omkar inside your both the arms. Now slowly start chanting Omkar inside your spinal cord, from the back of the neck till the tailbone, your back, the front side of your body, chest, abdomen, the internal organs, visceral organs, your legs. Now just observe your whole body. Each and every cell of your body is energized with this Omkar. Today you have tried to balance the generator, the organizer and the destroyer inside you by chanting Omkar at your navel center, heart center and eyebrow center. This practice is very, very effective. If you have diseases of your digestive system, musculoskeletal system and heart related problems. At the same time, we all know that today almost all the diseases are studied under psychosomatic conditions or the stress bound disorders. So when you practice Omkar exactly the way we have done here now, basically this is done on a particular scale and a rag. So its effect is much more better than any other type of practice or chanting of Omkar, because it directly stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and immediately your mind is calmed down. So regular practice of Omkar meditation can not only relieve you from all the problems of your body, At the same time, it will improve the deep internal awareness, a very good concentration and relaxation.
Here we conclude the workshop. I thank all of you for being with us and participating in this workshop. This workshop was jointly organized by Kaivalyadhama and IYA on the occasion of the 8th International Day of Yoga. I am sure you all will continue your enthusiasm for yoga throughout the 30 days of this celebration and stay on the path of mental wellness throughout your life. Keep practicing. Thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.